Hey, welcome back, everybody, for the penultimate round of the Winter Invitational here at the Summit of Champions. Aaron, welcome back to the desk once again. This tournament's been incredible so far. This matchup is going to be between Marco and Alex. Now, these are both trainers that have only had one loss, so they're going to be battling it out for grand finals. Both of them have been knocked down to this kind of loser's side, as it were, by Kinugua. So the fact that they are now battling it out to try and get redemption and the championship title is, I think, a really intense match.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been fun to watch both of these players. I think from Alex's end, like his match against Wolf in particular, like the way he utilized Golden Go in particular was really impressive, and he just felt like he was really playing his A game. Of course, his team unique because he's actually running Dragonite and the Golden Go, which was of course a duel we saw in the previous regulation. Not as common these days, but he's made Golden Go look really, really good.
Yeah, Golden Go's been great, and the fact that the Make It Rain can not only hit both targets but do a significant amount and can be backed up by a nasty plot just gives it a lot of flexibility on the field, and particularly the way Alex is such a master at supporting it effectively with Incineroar and Rillaboom switching in and in and in has been really, really nice. The one Pokemon I want to see shine a bit more on Alex's side is that Dragonite. I feel like it's often just come in, taken attacks, kind of been used to kind of protect another Pokemon, as it were, take the damage, be a shield. And I want to see it kind of be the sword a little bit more, be able to come out and do damage of its own right.
Definitely. I think Dragonite probably not as easy to use in this format, which is why you don't see it as much, right? Flutter Mane being everywhere, Incineroar being everywhere, just makes it really struggle. I think Alex in particular, of course, obviously has the Steel Terra plus Iron Head, and so you're able to actually threaten the opposing Flutter Mane for damage, but the combination of Intimidate plus Pokemon that can just threaten you with knockouts and Pokemon that can be immune to your damage make it a little bit tricky. Of course, Alex also running the classic Incineroar Urshifu core, but having the Assault Vest on the Incineroar, the Clear Amulet on the Rillaboom, and then the Choice Band on the Urshifu.
Yeah, and that Urshifu has been incredibly strong. We've seen it absolutely tear through Rillabooms, for example. The Choice Band just giving so much extra damage to the Surging Strikes. It does make it a Pokemon that, even defensively, you don't really have safe switch-ins, particularly to that Surging Strikes. There's very little that isn't going to take any damage from that.
And yeah, we think about Marco's team. Raging Bolt, yeah, he is running the Calm Mind Raging Bolt. We haven't really seen it come out too much, but if you're thinking about things that can be good into Urshifu, well, this is something that can certainly tank a Surging Strikes. Of course, he's also got some really solid defensive Terras. The Steel Terra on his Urshifu was absolutely huge in his matchup against Wolf, protecting the Urshifu from otherwise getting knocked out by things like Landorus, for example, as well as Flutter Mane. And then, of course, he's also running the super bulky Flutter Mane set.
Yeah, the Flutter Mane's always interesting. Being able to have that Moonblast coverage for the fighting types and, being able to apply pressure to the Dragonite, particularly in this matchup, I think is really nice and might indeed encourage that Dragonite to stay at home. Another Pokemon that, has been really interesting to see is the Chien-Pao, because it's a Pokemon that works so well with its physical attackers, using that Sword of Ruin ability to really help them deal that extra damage. But again, in a meta where there's so many other physical opponents as well, it can be almost detrimental to your own team because you're boosting them up at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the interesting things about this matchup is also how both players don't have crazy speed control. Like, it's mainly the opposing Flutter Manes. Of course, from Marco's end, you've got the Thunder Wave, no Icy Wind, and then Alex has both Icy Wind and Thunder Wave, but both running the no Protect Flutter Mane, super bulky variants. And so if either player wants to get a speed advantage, like, you're going to have to look towards that Flutter Mane. I think the main thing here is that Marco does have Chien-Pao, which is naturally already a very fast Pokemon. And Chien-Pao, of course, can do a lot of damage into Rillaboom, into Dragonite. If you bait out the Flying Terra from Golden Go, also deals super effective damage into that. Crucially, though, the Chien-Pao does not have a Dark-type attack, and so you actually don't threaten Golden Go at all until you force the Terra out.
That's a great observation, actually, about the speed control. Flutter Mane's not even running Icy Wind, it's just that Thunder Wave, so it can only really target one opponent at a time. Interestingly, maybe that's why Chien-Pao does have that Ice Shard to have that extra priority, and into Pokemon like Rillaboom and Dragonite, just being able to chip away at them can do some good damage, or maybe if there's a potential Focus Sash out there, obviously in this matchup that's not too relevant, but just being able to have multiple options of priority, Aqua Jet, Glassy Guide, the Ice Shard, as we mentioned, Thunderclap even, maybe is a nice way to bypass that lack of dominant speed control.
Yeah, I think one of the big questions I have is, fundamentally, both of these trainers have 4 of the 6 same Pokemon, right? The Incin, the Rillaboom, the Ursh, the Flutter Mane. And are the key differences enough to make enough of a difference, right? So I think like Golden Go is something that Alex has used really effectively. might not be the easiest Pokemon to pull off in this matchup because, of course, Incineroar can switch in really nicely into it. Urshifu can. Raging Bolt's in as well, right? You've got 3 things that just resist Steel-type damage. But Golden Go is so good into Flutter Mane, can be very good into Chien-Pao as well. Like, it actually just completely walls both of those, right? And so it's like, if you think that Marco's going to lead into those, Golden Go can just apply so much pressure. And then if you're Marco, like, do you really want to bring Chien-Pao and Flutter Mane knowing that Golden Go defeats those so easily?
That's true. Golden Go applies so much pressure, and you need to then find a way to be able to work around it. So you've got your Incineroar, for example. You can go for some Flare Blitzes at the same time as you mentioned. If you can bait out that flying typing, then that maybe does give you a few more options, particularly with the Raging Bolt. Being able to hit it with, a Thunderclap will be fantastic. I want to maybe see if Raging Bolt can get that Calm Mind set up as well, because not only is that going to help it out against other special attackers like Flutter Mane, Golden Go, but being able to boost up your own special attack to be more formidable in your own right could put Raging Bolt into a fantastic position.
Definitely, yeah. I think a Pokemon that has the ability to set up, but it's not always going to be easy when you're staring down a Flutter Mane with Taunt on the opposing side. Raging Bolt is also one of those Pokemon where it is threatened immensely actually by the Dragonite from Alex's end, right? Like, the Scale Shot is quite scary. So, of course, you can get around that by going for a Terra with your Raging Bolt, but then once you're Fairy Terra, it does open you up to weaknesses from the Golden Go as well as the Iron Head from Dragonite. So I think this Dragonite is something that is really intriguing to me because, like we talked about, it's not the easiest to pull off in this format, but the combination of Scale Shot plus Steel Terra Iron Head actually makes it very formidable into the classic Fairy Terra Raging Bolt.
Yeah, true. If you're able to be in a position to utilize that terrestrialization of the Steel type, I think it puts you into a great spot. And it'd be nice to see Iron Head kind of get a little bit of usage out there in this particular tournament as well. But I think, Aaron, the trainers are ready. This is their kind of elimination match. One will become finalist in the knockout competition. So let's see who they're bringing. Really interested to see who's going to come out on top of this lead. We've got Flutter Mane and the Golden Go, and Rillaboom and Urshifu.
So Alex's Flutter Mane, of course, hits the field immediately, and it does have a pretty decent defensive Terra in Grass Terra, which actually does allow you to survive most of these big attacks, right? Wood Hammer, Surging Strikes, these are normally attacks you'd want to go for. Golden goes in this weird position, right? I think, like, it feels very good in this matchup in a particular Pokemon, specifically the Flutter Mane and Chien-Pao, but feels quite bad into a lot of the other Pokemon, right? Like, right now, even a Make It Rain is not going to do a ton of damage into the Rillaboom or Urshifu. But then it's like, do you really want to take the turn to set up a Nasty Plot as well? Because if you Nasty Plot, well, then Marco can just knock you out fairly quickly, right? The Golden Go is also, I think, quite slow. We've seen it being slower than Alex's Incineroar, actually, in one of the previous sets. And so it's an awkward position, I think, for Alex, because it's like, okay, Flutter Mane, you do apply pressure with the Moonblast. You can maybe Taunt. Taunt doesn't really get you very far into these Pokemon. You could Icy Wind for some speed control, but I think Alex recognizes, hey, Golden Go wants to be out against certain Pokemon. This is not the time for it, and he's actually going to reveal the Dragonite here in the back.
Yeah, switching out one of our ghosts, bringing the Dragon in instead. So Dragonite going to be able to, have its bulk out on the field as Flutter Mane utilizes that terrestrialization. So it's going to be becoming the grass type. This is going to help it out against those potential Surging Strikes coming through from the Urshifu, changing its typing to resist those, puts it into a great position. It is going to go for that Thunder Wave, however, so slowing down the Urshifu, and maybe is not going to have to take any Surging Strikes at all if the Paralysis does come through. Rillaboom, however, does not utilize Fake Out, considering it was against 2 ghosts, and can apply good pressure with that Wood Hammer, using that grassy terrain to do a significant amount of damage. No follow-up, however, so Flutter Mane stays on the field, but Dragonite will have its multi-scale broken here. So interesting targeting, being able to get some good damage apiece on Alex's side.
There is some humor in seeing a Flutter Mane go for a defensive Terra and then still lose 70% of its health. But crucially, like I said, the Grass Terra at least ensuring that you will likely survive the turn with Flutter Mane. Maybe a Surging plus Wood Hammer double up would have gotten the knockout onto that, but Alex does manage to get the Dragonite in. We were talking about the difficulty of speed control coming into this, and so one interesting solution is to actually go for Grass Terra on the Flutter Mane, right? Now you are potentially vulnerable to like an Aqua Jet plus Grassy Glide double up. Marco looks like he's content just bringing in Incineroar. This is one of the main liabilities of Dragonite, right? Because it's the multi-skill set. Intimidate just goes such a long way. And so I think this turn Marco won't threaten in with a ton of damage. You could just Wood Hammer Flutter Mane again once, obviously, but I think Incin is super safe switching right now.
But I think as well, critically, it was keeping that Golden Go nice and safe in the back for later. So Dragonite can just kind of see what it can get done on the field here. The Scale Shot will come through, so the double up focusing into that Rillaboom. Alex really just trying to remove that from play. I mean, even if it gets the 5, it's not going to be able to get the KO. But even, I think maybe a Moonblast would be able to put it into... I can't remember how much it did at the beginning, but it could put Rillaboom into a bit of a difficult spot, as well as Dragonite gaining this critical speed boost.
And Fluttermane will go down, right? So Wood Hammer is still so powerful into this Pokemon. I mean, at the end of the day, Fluttermane's base HP and defense are just not very powerful. So even when players using it as a defensive tool in this format, Rillaboom is just so powerful. And so the question I have is, like, is that paralysis on the Urshifu worth the trade-off for committing your Terra, right? Like, one of the things we were talking about was, hey, like, the Dragonite is a threat to this Raging Bolt. We actually saw Marco has Raging Bolt as his final option. But if you can't steal Terra, that Iron Head becomes a lot less effective, and the Intimidate from Incineroar is really going a long way as well. So I think Alex right now in a good position to put on some offense, but Marco, of course, still has all of his Pokemon, and Dragonite already being intimidated, eating up a defense drop, puts it in a fairly tricky spot.
And I think as well, the Incineroar, you know, it's in a position where it can do some good damage into the Rillaboom, but Rillaboom, unless it's able to connect that high horsepower, isn't in a position to retaliate effectively at all. Possibly on Marco's side, you're wanting to try and get a position where that Raging Bolt can come in nice and safe, maybe try and get a Calm Mind up. If Incineroar is able to create a window of opportunity for that to happen. Rillaboom, however, is just going to go for the fake out into the opposing Incineroar here, just slowing down the pace of play. As the Dragonite, once again, Alex going in for these double ups. So Dragonite going for the scale shot once again, obviously not getting a KO, but critically just chipping away constantly to maybe enable the Golden Go in the back to just be in a fine position to make it rain and get knockouts.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think one of the other things here is, even though you're eating up these defense drops, it's not like Rillaboom really poses a huge offensive threat to Dragonite, right? At the end of the day, the Rillaboom set is double grass type attack and high horsepower. Dragonite obviously can resist those super nicely. And so I think it makes a lot of sense from Alex's end, because one, the Rillaboom's already like one attack away from getting knocked out. You deny giving him a free switch in. So Dragonite, despite being intimidated, despite being at -2, is actually not in a terrible spot right now. And the main thing here is Incineroar likely won't be able to survive a double up, and so you can see Marco going for a switch. I think if you're Marco, you really want to knock out the Dragonite, especially with that being at -2 defense, but harder to actually pull that off when your Incineroar is slower and facing damage from the opposing side.
Yeah, I mean, neither Incineroar or Rillaboom are kind of known as the counters to Dragonite necessarily. So I think Dragonite's able to just sit here and kind of keep going for these scale shots, just try and get damage on the board to open up a KO opportunity for a partner Pokemon. Of course, as well, you know, both these trainers have the options to start maybe switching in their fake outs to be able to slow pace a play down and also open up windows of opportunity for the partner Pokemon here. Incineroar's going to leave on Marco's side and obviously bringing back in that Urshifu. It is paralyzed, it is going to be a little bit slower, but it allows that Intimidate and Fake Out to come back later on, which I think is the critical moment. And considering Rillaboom's just gone down here, Aaron, you can bring Incineroar right back in. Yeah,
I like how much mileage Alex has gotten out of Dragonite, though, I have to say, right? Like, you can just switch it out potentially the next turn, and it also is now just so speedy. And it's actually going to be the Wood Hammer here. Oh my goodness, predicting the Incineroar switch out there. Of course, if you're Marco, you're probably thinking, if I just stayed in with Incineroar, there could have been a knockoff, but Marco was likely expecting a double up onto the Incineroar slot, like a scale shot plus high horsepower combination. And instead, Alex gets 2 knockouts, and getting a one-hit knockout onto a Urshifu is always so satisfying.
Oh, definitely. Just completely removing that Pokemon from play. Even though it's paralyzed, it's still going to be able to hit hard, so it was nice to remove it. And now you're forcing Marco, you know, down 2 Pokemon to bring in these last 2. You know, this is going to be the last Intimidate, the last Fake Out of this particular game. Raging Bolt, however, is in a position to maybe start getting some good damage off. It's going to need to, I think, get a Calm Mind up to be able to apply pressure to that Rillaboom, because things like the Thunderclap aren't going to be doing too much. Dragon Pulse can be decent, obviously, and particularly into Dragonite, but then you have to contend with potential Protects.
Yeah, I think one of the key dilemmas for Marco is, like, when do you commit that Terra, right? Because if you go for that Terra, sure, it gives you immunity into the scale shot, but then the steel type attacks become super effective, whether it be Iron Head or potentially Golden Goal in the back. And so Marco's like, I don't need to go for it right now. I've already gotten 2 Intimidates onto your Dragonite. Also, there's like leftovers and grassy terrain, so even a 5-hit skill shot, not the biggest threat. I think from Alex's end, it makes a ton of sense to switch out right now. You want to reset those Intimidates, reset that defense drop. It is going to be Golden Go as the final Pokemon, so feels like Alex is actually really pinned Marco in a tough spot, because you have to deal with a combination of Scale Shot plus Make It Rain, which covers for, you know, Raging Bolt going for Terra or not Terraing.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to commit to a fairy terrestrialization when there's a golden go on the field. And as you mentioned, Dragonite does have the utility to go for the Iron Head. The Dragon Pulse does get the knockout, so the grassy terrain leaves with Rillaboom, as it seems. And now, if you're Alex, you're forced to bring back in this Dragonite, but you've reset that Intimidate, like you said, so Iron Head potentially can do some good damage, or Scale Shot, if you don't commit to that terrestrialization, is also going to be significant. So there's going to be a lot of reads and, decisions to make here on Alex's side in order to gain full momentum in this match.
Yeah, and you can see Marco actually just going for Flare Blitz and the Dragon Pulse here, right? Saying, I will be able to get a knockout, and you also have to play around me potentially protecting my Dragonite. So it's like if you're on Alex's end, you could go for something like Scale Shot plus a Make It Rain onto the Incineroar slot to try to get the knockout onto that. But the scary thing is, like, Golden Go might not win against the Calm Mind Raging Bolt, right? So even though Alex has, like, a really strong offensive positioning, like, he still has to get the turn right. We saw the Flare Blitz lock into Golden Go. So if it ends up being, like, Scale Shot into the Raging Bolt and a Protect from Golden Go, Alex will likely win the game. It's actually just going to be a Make It Rain here. But I think Make It Rain and Scale Shot into Raging Bolt would knock it out. Flare Blitz goes into Golden Go, and then if Alex just Scale Shots Incineroar, he likely wins. So let's see.
Yeah, Make It Rain, just that kind of fast attack out here on the field. Citrus Berry is going to be eaten up by the Incineroar. Oh, it's going down into the Incineroar as well. That Scale Shot, so not targeting down into the Raging Bolt. And I think that Citrus Berry has kept Incineroar in the game.
Oh, I love this play by Marco, right? Like, yes, you risk eating up a Skill Shot on the Raging Bolt, but decides not to go for the Fairy Terra, so you don't take the super effective damage, and straight up just Dragon Pulses. Marco's saying, if you want to call me out, you're going to have to Scale Shot and Make It Rain into the Raging Bolt slot. If you do that, then I get the Flare Blitz off into the Golden Go, and then Incin can, like, knock off into Dragonite. And so sometimes, like, yeah, even though you have the threat of Terra, knowing that your opponent has to respect it means that Marco ends up actually just taking this first game, which is really masterfully done. Like, just going for, Dragon Pulse onto a Dragonite with the threat of Skill Shot, not the easiest play necessarily to make.
Yeah, I feel like this particular game was like a tale of two halves, depending on which Dragon Pokemon was in play. The Dragonite did so well for Alex and he was able to consistently play really well, being able to get those Scale Shots down. Dragonite was, utilized much better in this game than I think we've seen him use previously in this particular tournament. And then suddenly, as soon as Raging Ball comes out, Marco making the right reads on where their Dragon Pulses was going to go, getting those knockouts, and then that very bold play at the end obviously really paid off.
Yeah, it was one of those things that I was thinking about where even if Alex made the right play, which was probably Scale Shot into Raging Bolt, like Scale Shot into Raging Bolt plus Make It Rain kind of covers for Raging Bolt attacking. But then if Raging Bolt just protects, you're at risk of eating a Flare Blitz and then you lose the game immediately. So that turn kind of felt like a mind game. It's like, one, do you predict Raging Bolt to protect? And two, if it protects, then you would double up onto the Incineroar, right? But it's a question of, like, yeah, does it protect? If it doesn't protect, does it Terra? And then, I think Alex ended up, hoping that it would Terra and not protect, and did not end up getting it right there. But there's a world in which maybe Marco does go for the Fairy Terra, the Skill Shot goes into, like, Dragonite, and then it's, like, a very different outcome, right? So that turn just really feeling like it kind of, determined the entire game. And I think Alex not being able to leverage Terra super effectively probably was a little bit difficult, right? Like, he use Grass Terra on Flutter Mane to get a Thunder Wave off, but I'm not sure that Thunder Wave, like trading your Terra to get a Thunder Wave on Urshifu, is necessarily super worth it.
I think as well, Marco didn't use Terrestrialization in this game, right?
That's correct. Yeah, he had the ability to on that last turn, but crucially decided to hold on to it because he's like, I don't want to get pinned by the Skill Shot Make It Rain combo.
This is exactly how we played at the very beginning of the tournament, no terrestrialization in that opening game. And, Marcus and I were kind of talking about how in his team, there are opportunities where he doesn't necessarily need to use the terrestrialization. Whereas I think in this particular game, it was almost the reverse for Alex. You kind of had an opportunity where you maybe needed to use it, but it just didn't pay off. And it maybe wasn't the correct usage of it in the particular, looking back at the game. But we're jumping into game two. Remember, this is the elimination match. So Marco just needs one more game in order to try and get revenge against Kanugua. And Alex is fighting for the tournament life here.
Yeah, and you can see an adaptation here. No more Golden Go as the lead. I think Golden Go is just really awkward in the sense that, once again, if you're staring down a Flutter Mane or a Chien-Pao, you're like, all right, I'm very happy I brought Golden Go. But without it, Golden Go just, is threatened by a lot of damage and doesn't do enough damage in return.
Yeah.
Urshifu being the adjustment, of course, this is the Ghost Terra Choice Band set, so it could go for Ghost Terra turn 1, get around a potential Fake Out from either Pokemon, and then just do a ton of damage with, a Choice Band Close Combat. Could even, Ghost Terra U-turn out, for example. But, yeah, I mean, I think, right now, Marco does threaten with so much offense, right? You have the Surging Strikes pressure into Flutter Mane, the Wood Hammer pressure into Urshifu. Alice can Terra one Pokemon, but certainly not both.
That's the thing, where do you call that trustalization, and is it going to give you the benefits for the end game of the situation? Trustalization does indeed come through very early doors here in this game too, and it's going to be onto that Flutter Mane. So Flutter Mane, once again, bringing out the bouquet and turning into a grass type, going to give it a little bit more defensive coverage against something like a Surging Strikes, but we know that the physical defenses of this... just so much. I was about to say, physically defensive, Flutter Mane is not, but especially attack offensive, it definitely is.
The Moonblast gets the knockout there, and it's Choice Band U-turn, no fake out, no Grassy Glide. It is the dream turn for Alex here. Despite this being, yeah, like the Flutter Mane with Moonblast, Taunt, Icy Wind, and Thunder Wave, it's still offensive enough to get the knockout onto Urshifu, which I honestly was not expecting there. And so Rillaboom comes in, and now you have two Pokemon to take the Wood Hammer, and wow, what a turn one for Alex there.
Yeah, that was such a commanding start. So much damage on the board. A fantastic defensive Terrestrialization here, keeping it in the game with the Rillaboom, but obviously we'll have to see if that is going to stand the test of time. Marco does have the opportunity to bring in a Pokemon from the back. Something like an Incineroar is just going to be able to wipe away with that opposing Flutter Mane, and you have the Rillaboom on the opposing side as well.
That was just a lights out turn one, right? I feel like this entire time I've been baited into thinking, oh, Flutter Mane, it's so bulky. Like, yeah, you've got Moonblast and Icy Wind, but it's probably a 2-hit knockout onto most Pokemon. But just one-shotting Urshifu immediately gives a huge, huge advantage to Alex there. And this time, yeah, I mean, I think worth it to Grass Terra Flutter Mane. You know, the other thing about the Flutter Mane right now is that you have the taunt, so you can theoretically taunt into the opposing Raging Bolt, preventing it from being able to Calm Mind freely, right? So from Alex's end, you could go for kind of like the safe play of Fake Out plus Taunt. You could also Predict a Protect and then like do the classic, let me cycle my Fake Out user into my other Fake Out user. Either way, though, really, really strong turn one by Alex. And like the Flutter Mane is pretty clearly an offensive threat here with Moonblast into either slot as well.
Yeah, true. Moonblast can do a lot of damage. I like the idea of Taunt on there, not only you know, shutting down Calm Mind, but also shutting Protect, leaving it a little bit more vulnerable to that Moonblast, maybe if Flutter Mane is able to make it out through the turn. Rillaboom decided to leave the field. At the end of the day, Marco now has the potential to Intimidate and most critically Fake Out into this opposing Flutter Mane because it no longer is a Ghost type. So that's something that you can do to help protect this Raging Bolt a little bit more if it is able to Protect, and that's exactly what it's gone for.
Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense because then you can just Fake Out Calm Mind potentially next turn. Flutter Mane does end up targeting into the Raging Bolt slot. Crucially, the Rillaboom not going for a Fake Out as we see an Icy Wind come out. So will Rillaboom here go for a high horsepower, potentially into the Incineroar switch, and it is going to be the high horsepower. I think this play is actually quite safe at the end of the day, right? Because if Marco stays in with this Rillaboom, you just eat up a super effective Icy Wind. And if you switch into the Incineroar, you get eat up a high horsepower. But Alex has been in full control of this game. Like, it honestly feels quite difficult for Marco to come back from this one. Now, you do have Fake Out plus a potential Calm Mind available, or you could just Fake Out Dragon Pulse. But I think this Clear Amulet Rillaboom is such a huge threat, right? High horsepower does so much damage across the board.
And you've got no way to neutralize it, as you said, Clear Amulet stopping that Intimidate from coming through. And the fact that you've got your choice of targets, you can do damage into the Raging Bolt, into the Incineroar, does make Rillaboom a really good threat. The Fake Out does, however, go down into the Flutter Mane, I think maybe wanting to stop that potential Taunt coming through if a Calm Mind does want to rise up onto that Raging Bolt. Once again, high horsepower finds its mark, does do damage down into the Incineroar, but this is critical, I think, for this Raging Bolt to set it up for success. It needed to get this Calm Mind off.
Absolutely, yeah. The question is, how much can it get from this, right? Because if you're Alex, you can just taunt into the Raging Bolt and prevent any future Calm Minds. And so you can see Marco is trying to circumvent that by switching in the Rillaboom and going for Dragon Pulse, saying, look, I don't care if you taunt me here, I'm going to just go for the knockout. And then the switching into Rillaboom also covers for the high horsepower. If you're on Alex's end, you could choose to not taunt and just go for damage. I think taunt is probably pretty safe because it just means like Marco guaranteed won't be able to get any more Calm Minds off, at least for the next couple of turns. And Alex already has a big enough lead in this game where I feel like playing safe probably is okay, but you also could just send it and say, you know what, I'm going to Moonblast and high horsepower / Wood Hammer your Raging Bolt.
Yeah, and just getting that Dragon Pulse damage off as well, as you said, you will be able to get the knockout. You can remove that threat of the Flutter Mane from play. You don't have to worry about potential Moonblast coming back through your team. Incineroar actually just straight on leaving the field here on Marco's side, wanting to maybe bring that temptation in a little bit later. We're seeing once again that kind of feint come through as the Rillaboom joins the field. So not Icy Wind, however, no taunt. Rillaboom is going to have to take that, but it is able to hang on, and Raging Bolt taking it respectively as well.
Yeah, the Icy Wind here just to make sure that you'll be faster, and then ends up being Woodhammer into that slot, just guaranteeing a knockdown onto the Rillaboom. I actually think if the Incineroar had just stayed in there, likely would have been able to survive that double up, and so Alex ends up calling it right again, opening himself to a slight risk, ends up, yeah, fainting with the Flutter Mane, but the trade feels certainly worth it. So the main question right now is, like, what does Alex have in the back? Because a Dragonite in the late game obviously can feel really, really scary. I think Alex ended up, not leading the Golden Go because he realized, hey, it's kind of awkward as a lead, but it could still be very good in the end game if you've, like, fully knocked out everything next to the Raging Bolt. We saw how good, like, the Instant Raging Bolt combo is here, but Alex also prioritizing getting these speed drops just to make sure that his Pokemon will outspeed in the end game.
Well, we've got the Urshifu coming front and center here. This is going to be a great Pokemon to try and deal with that Incineroar. You can just go through with those Surging Strikes and get some good damage on the board, but it does leave you in a vulnerable position against this Raging Bolt. Something like a Thunderclap's going to be able to do a lot of damage into the Urshifu.
Yeah, this turn is really scary if you're Alex, right? It's like you are facing down a ton of offensive pressure and you've Terra'd, right? Like, you can Flare Blitz into the Rillaboom slot, get Thunderclap into Urshifu. Alex may have brought in out the Urshifu to try to bait out a Thunderclap and then, like, hard switch Urshifu immediately out. But yeah, I think, like, this dynamic is a little bit awkward right now. And the Urshifu, of course, does have Aqua Jet as well. So you could Aqua Jet to get around Thunderclap, knock out the Incineroar, and then win the game from there.
That would be a really nice chain of events, actually, and it would keep Alex certainly in the driving seat here, being able to, circumnavigate taking damage and being able to deal some damage out. But Fake Out comes through, first of all, from this Incineroar. Oh, it looks like it's the Surging Strikes coming through, just the one hit. One hit and it's down, but no Thunderclap.
Yeah. It was Surging Strikes there, so Alex taking another big risk, but pays off heavily there. I was wondering if Aqua Jet there would do enough damage, because that would get around the Thunderclap potentially. As Dragon Pulse comes out, it's still not enough to knock out the Rillaboom, though. And so it's all down to Marco's Raging Bolt. Of course, Urshifu locked into Surging Strikes, not going to be the strongest damage dealer into Raging Bolt. And so if there's any Pokemon that can pull off a comeback, it is going to be Raging Bolt. It's committing to the Thunderclap there, does not want to eat up a high horsepower. So if you're Alex, the question is, do you switch out the Urshifu here, right? I was kind of surprised to see Urshifu come in first. And now that it's locked into Surging, like, it's just not very powerful into Raging Bolt. And like you said, Luke, getting that Calm Mind up earlier was such a big deal in being able to just further, like, amplify your damage output. And so last turn, I think, ends up working out okay for Alex. You get the knockout. The big question I have is what's remaining in the back, right? Is it that Dragonite?
Oh, well, the Thunderclap did come through, but it went into the Rillaboom here instead of that Urshifu, leaving it completely unchecked. Thunderclap gets the knockout on the Rillaboom. You're now facing down against this Choice Band Urshifu, but that is pitiful damage from a Choice Band Pokemon. Raging Bolt is able to just absolutely eat this up.
I think the tough thing here for Marco, though, is, like, Alex does finally get the free switch in that he's looking for, right? And so my guess is it would be the Dragonite here. If it's Dragonite, then it's like, okay, you can force the Terra out. You kind of have to Terra. It is going to be Dragonite. Yeah, so exactly. Like, basically, it's like, okay, I can Scale Shot and Surging Strikes here. But yeah, you can just go for Fairy Terra and then Thunderclap into Urshifu. This is why I thought, like, Urshifu coming out first on the field was kind of surprising to me, rather than Dragonite just hitting the field immediately. Because I think if Dragonite hit the field, it would have been able to potentially Scale Shot into the Incineroar. So now I actually think, Raging Bolt is in quite a good spot, right? Like, yes, there is Iron Head from the Dragonite on the opposing side, but it can't Terra. And then because this is Choice Band Urshifu and Terra was already committed, like, Thunderclap's a guaranteed knockout onto it. So then we're just going to end up in a Raging Bolt versus Dragonite match, and it's like, if you don't get crit or flinched by Iron Head, you might be good. So the first question I have here is, does Alex predict the Terra immediately and go for Iron Head here?
The Urshifu is just so vulnerable, as you've mentioned, being locked in. So the Thunderclap comes through, gets the easy knockout, and now you're just facing down against this Dragonite. And the Terrestrialization being conserved so well for Marco does mean that this Dragonite cannot hit you with that Scale Shot. As you can see, does no damage. It's a Fairy type now. Iron Head can come out, but this recovery as well, the Raging Ball has access to, thanks to the leftovers, particularly considering it can also keep going for the Protect. That's something you have to work around the Iron Head with, because yes, Iron Head does damage, but there's no Terrestrialization, it doesn't get the same type of attack bonus. It's not going to be dealing huge amounts. I would say. We'll have to see. It is going to connect eventually.
Yeah, I thought it was over, honestly. But the Raging Bolt with Calm Mind proving why it can be one of the most effective Pokemon in the format, right? So I certainly would expect it to survive an Iron Head. Does it crit? Does it flinch? Yeah. It is going to survive. Let's see. No crit or flinch. Dragon Pulse comes out. But it's not enough to get the knockout. And so Lou, the key thing here is Dragonite does have extreme speed, so you can keep clicking extreme speed to get around a Thunderclap.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh, we're going to be in that. Ooh, in that little mind game towards the end here. I mean, it did more than I thought it was going to do, to be fair. I'm sorry, Dragonite. I kind of underestimated the power there of the Iron Head. And as you mentioned as well, there's the potential for those secondary effects to come through, and that could be detrimental. But the extreme speed coming through to stop the Thunderclap, this could be very dicey.
Yeah, the thing here is you can see Marco's like, okay, I can at least get my safe protects off, right? Because maybe as you weave the protects in, like you could go protect, Thunderclap, and like keep clicking Thunderclap. Like it's, I think, tough for Alex because you have to get every turn right? Like extreme speed will do decent damage, but then the leftovers plus protect just heals it back pretty substantially. So like Alex is hoping to eventually get Marco into a position where he gets scared and then you're able to just click Iron Head once more. But I'm pretty sure a +1 Thunderclap will knock out Dragonite from the range that it's at. So this feels really tense.
It's nice to
and
see
it is
Dragonite.
Iron Head.
Oh, okay. It was Iron Head, not the extreme speed, so you still got one of those banked for later on as well. But I was just saying, it's really nice to see both these dragons in this kind of end game situation, trying to duke it out for who's going to come out on top. And Raging Bolt, again, now has a choice to make. Do you go for the Thunderclap, or do you go for that Dragon Pulse?
It is the Thunderclap lock-in. Let's see, does Alex go for extreme speed to get around it? If not, Thunderclap, I think, will just knock out Dragonite. He revealed Iron Head, I believe, in the previous turn, so it is so tense. Raging Bolt looking to pull off a comeback of a century. It is so close. Was able to knock out Rillaboom, was able to knock out Urshifu, and all of it hinges on this Dragonite's move decision right now. Dragonite, of course, could go for a protect, but then you're just letting Raging Bolt get more recovery off with the leftovers, which I don't think you want.
No, definitely.
Oh, it is extreme speed. Oh my goodness.
Raging Bolt was able to hang on, and Raging Bolt was going for the Thunderclap, so it completely fails. Oh, if that had been a Dragon Pulse, this would have been over.
Yep, exactly. But Marco says, I don't want to take that risk. He's still, okay, he's going to go for Thunderclap once more here. Oh my goodness. Just locking it in. And he was like, well, last time I protected you Iron-Headed.
Yeah.
The extreme speed actually also did more damage than expected, and it is extreme speed.
Come through.
Not against the knockout.
Oh my goodness, Aaron, we're going to a game 3.
Oh, I knew like this endgame would be so dicey. I thought Marco would at least weave in a protect there though to get one more turn of recovery. I'm kind of surprised to not see the protect. And yeah, it was actually low enough that an extreme speed just got the knockout.
Honestly, that Iron Head, I have to hold my hands up. I didn't think it was going to do as much as it did outside of Terrestrialization, but it just enabled such a fantastic endgame win con for those extreme speeds to come through. And I think you said it multiple times in that match, Alex was just constantly like in command of knowing the right Pokemon to target, the right double target, the right protect, and right through to the end, he was still holding up that same level of mental play.
Yeah, I thought what the game would boil down to was whether or not Alex would get the extreme speed call right twice, but because Marco didn't protect there, like, even if he had gone for Dragon Pulse, he would have fainted to extreme speed, so I thought weaving in a protect to get one more turn of leftovers recovery could have been helpful, because then you could potentially survive the extreme speed, so then it's the mind game of, okay, I got it wrong the first time, let me go for it again, but Alex, yeah, pulling it out, and I'm pretty sure it was him locking Iron Head on the first protect, and I think that conditioned Marco into being quite scared. But then Alex just decides to click extreme speed for the rest of the game, and what a back and forth game 2 that was.
Yeah, Raging Bolt really coming so close towards the end there. You know, that Calm Mind really helping out earlier on, but wow, what a way for Dragonite to come back in. You know, we were kind of saying how Dragonite is difficult to play in this format, and being able to see the way Alex is piloting, you almost ask why. And that's why it is such a... This Invitational is full of champions for a reason, because not everybody can pilot Dragonite so effectively in this particular regulation, but Alex Gomez can.
I think the lead was really strong for Alex, but Marco actually still brought it back, and it was off the work of Raging Bolt. Like Raging Bolt felt really good in that one, and it shows kind of this awkward dynamic, right? Like Alex was trying to pin the Raging Bolt in game 1 with Dragonite Golden Go, but there was still the Incineroar to deal with from the opposing end. And then in that previous game, with no Golden Go, it's actually a little bit harder to pin Raging Bolt. And so, yeah, I think, like, Marco probably recognizes, well, Bolt is really good in this matchup if I am able to find the right position for it. But here we are, going into game 3, and it's going to be Fluttermane and Urshifu against Urshifu and Rillaboom. And we saw how this played out in the first turn of the last game, right, where Moonblast just knocked out Urshifu immediately. Yeah. So if you're Marco, you can, of course, consider going for a defensive Terra with your Urshifu in that Steel Terra, or you could just detect immediately on turn 1.
Yeah, Alex really was not messing around in that game too. And this Flutter Mane, like you said, is in a potential to deal a huge amount of damage with that Moonblast. Alternatively, you could always try and go for something like that Thunder Wave, start slowing down things again, you know, paralyzing Pokemon on the opposing side, just limiting the pressure that they're going to be able to exert throughout the rest of the game.
Marco made his moves really, really quickly there. You don't think we saw the Terra commit. I think he was just, aggressively targeting into the Flutter Mane. So, yeah, it is interesting because I think in Game 1, Flutter Mane felt kind of underwhelming, but in Game 2 actually looked really good because of the ability to just Moonblast into the opposing Urshifu. One of the awkward things about these Flutter Mane sets is, like, not having Protect or... and running the booster energy means that, like, if you switch it in, you probably just, like, want to, commit to it instead of, like, switching it out and then back in. And so, once again, we're going to see the Grass Terra on Flutter Mane.
Yep, I mean, this has been really consistent for the Flutter Mane. It gives you the flexibility against the Wood Hammer, the Surging Strikes. It just allows it to be able to hang on through this turn.
My goodness.
Moonblast once again, but it goes into the Rillaboom. Very, very interesting choice here. Not targeting down into that Urshifu. With the follow-up of the close combat coming through, that's a knockout on the Rillaboom. Marco's down a Pokemon already.
Yeah, so this time opting to target Rillaboom rather than Urshifu, saying, Marco, you saw me Moonblast you previously. You have to Terra. You have to switch. Ends up actually being neither, but I think Alex is still happy with this trade because it's a Surging Strikes coming out, but that's not enough to get the knockout with the Grass Terra. And so really, really nice play. I like it from both players' ends. I think Marco taking a pretty big risk, and Alex was probably quite confident the Urshifu would Terra or switch or Protector. Like just going for a Surging once again, probably not the expected outcome.
I like the way Alex is so cognizant of how he played previously and is very self-aware of like, oh, Marco will think this because I did this, so I'm now going to do this. And that's kind of what we saw in the previous Endgame, you know, with the extreme speeds coming through, but also now again here, it's like Flutter Mane went for the Moonblast. I'm not going to go for this time. I'm going to target down the Rillaboom. He won't see this coming. He thinks I'm going to do this.
Exactly, yeah. I feel like if you are trying to learn best of 3 play, like you should watch how Alex has played this tournament because like the way like he adapts his plays, expecting a response from his opponent has been really impressive. And even though Marco maybe didn't fully respond the way Alex expected him to, like it still ends up being a fairly favorable trade-off. This turn, however, I think is very awkward for Alex, where you know that the Thunderclap is pressuring Urshifu, right? So if you're Marco, do you go for the obvious Thunderclap? Do you go for a read and say the switch is so obvious, I'm going to actually capitalize and go for a potential Calm Mind, as you can see, and he is going to go for the Calm Mind. So with no Terra committed, Alex could rip it here. He could theoretically Moonblast and Close Combat, double up into Raging Bolt, knock it out, knock the biggest threat, the MVP from the previous game, and potentially just move on to the finals. But it would have to be a really bold call.
I think the Raging Bolt is such a key component for Marco. It has to be the thing that you target down. But as you said, you know, it can even go for something like a Protect here, and then you're just leaving yourself open to the other Urshifu to be able to get some damage on the board. Urshifu on Alex's side is going to switch out. It did do the close combat before, so its defenses were a little bit weaker. Maybe wants to get that nicely reset as Rillaboom comes in. Instead of any Moonblast coming through, once again, Thunder Wave will connect down into an Urshifu. This is going to leave it nice and slow on the field, potentially not even going to be able to damage, and Raging Bolt is free to just go straight for this Calm Mind.
So, yeah, it ends up not being the crazy prediction, but I think it makes sense because Alex is probably feeling like he has the lead and ends up paralyzing the Urshifu here. And the Urshifu does not actually get an attack off. Alex could have launched Moonblast into that slot, but he was probably thinking, hey, well, if you go for Steel Terra, Moonblast doesn't do enough, and then paralyzing you means I get the speed advantage. It also means you roll for the para, and Urshifu not getting the Surging Strikes off there is a disaster. It means Flutter Mane will hang around for a little bit longer. And the key thing is Alex's clear Amulet Rillaboom is looking really scary from a damage perspective right now. You threaten with Wood Hammer onto Urshifu and High Horsepower onto Raging Bolt and Incineroar. So you can see what Marco's game plan is now. He's like, look, I know that you'll do a ton of damage with this, but if I switch in the right Pokemon at the right time, namely Incineroar into a Wood Hammer, I don't take that much damage, and then it means my Raging Bolt will get a big attack off.
I mean, this also isn't the traditional Rillaboom. On Alex's side, it's clear Amulet, so not running that Assault Vest, it is going to leave it more vulnerable to something like a Dragon Pulse coming through. So you do have utility ways to deal with it. Incineroar's another great option just by using that Flare Blitz. Yes, you can't intimidate it, but still getting damage to remove it from play is going to be important. Moonblast will come through into the Incineroar, does about a third of damage, very respectable, but the follow-up from the High Horsepower, again, putting it into a dangerous position, into that red zone. Incineroar is thankfully going to be able to munch onto its Sinus Berry to be able to regain a little bit of HP, because it's going to need it if another double up comes its way. Oh, this is not something you see every day, a Dragon-type move going down into a Flutter Mane, but the Terrestrialization leaves it exposed.
Yeah, I like Alex's play there because it covers for the switch it into Incineroar and the Steel Terra on Urshifu. Marco, to his credit, I think has done a really good job of holding on to his Terra for the entirety of the game. Like, and recognizing he has faced situations where if he, by not Terraing, can just like risk a one-hit KO, right? Flutter Mane, Moonblast into the Urshifu slot. We saw how that played out in game 2. I think Alex was like, you have to Terra, dude. Certainly it's going to come out. And Marco's like, nope, I'm not going to Terra. I'm not going to protect. But yeah, Alex still, of course, does get a lot of damage off. And as you mentioned, Lou, the Clear Amulet is such a big item here because it means Intimidate is just so much less effective. But for Alex, I think, you know, he's also probably thinking about how the end of game 1 played out and how, or end of game 2 played out, and how he like brought Urshifu out first in front of a Raging Bolt. So like this time around, for example, if you've got that Dragonite in the back, maybe you just bring it out now first instead of bringing your Urshifu out and playing that Thunderclap mind game. And it indeed is going to be Dragonite.
Yeah, Dragonite being revealed here is another piece in the puzzle here for Marco because, as you mentioned, the Terrestrialization is being very calmly used. It's being kept towards the end, but this is something that Raging Bolt might need to utilize later on to be able to get around something like the Scale Shots coming through.
Crucially, though, I can still see a, you know, like Raging Bolt once again is in this endgame where it is very scary, and with no Golden Go, it means that it's actually not the easiest Pokemon to deal with, right? And so I think the main tension I'm watching out for right now is, will Dragonite be able to call what Raging Bolt goes for, right? If Raging Bolt doesn't Terra and you just Scale Shot into it, you probably just win the game. But that's such a difficult play to cover for, especially when you're staring down an Incineroar, because like, let's say you attack into Raging Bolt. Oh my goodness, it's just Fake Out into Dragonite, no Protect. What?
Just goes straight into Dragonite, breaks that multi-scale, leaves it so vulnerable in these next couple of turns. Rillaboom's able to clean up the opposing Incineroar. This gives Marco the utility to bring something in from the back, as it just goes straight out with this Dragon Pulse. Dragonite drops thanks to the double up. There was absolutely no fear on Alex's side here, and Marco capitalized on it so beautifully.
Oh, that is such a heavy punish, Lou. I was like, well, what this boils down to is like, is Dragonite able to target Raging Bolt at the right time? But instead, it just attempts to attack. Completely fails. Yeah, gets flinched by the Fake Out, maybe predicting the Incineroar to like pivot back out into Urshifu there. And now it's the classic dilemma of like, well, Urshifu's out. It has to lock into, I mean, if you lock into anything that's not Aqua Jet, you just feign to a Thunderclap, right? And crucially, Marco still has his Terra available. So the fact that he was able to get around Dragonite without even committing Terra is unbelievable.
I mean, I'm just shocked Dragonite went away so quickly. As you said, it was in a position where it could be so defining in this game, and now it's been completely removed from play. Raging Bolt, I think, generally in a really fantastic position. You've got that Thunderclap priority that you can go down into. You do have to contend with, you know, the high horsepower coming from Rillaboom, but if you go for the Terrestrialization as well, then it puts you into maybe a safer spot there. I don't know how Raging Bolt doesn't dominate now.
Absolutely, yeah. It felt like Raging Bolt is such a big threat, and like Dragonite was the answer to it. So now that it's been eliminated, I think Marco should have a really advantageous position. Alex buys himself some time though. It's the Aqua Jet, so that does get around Thunderclap. That's the one move you can click to make sure you don't get Thunderclapped. But it's just going to be the Woodhammer into the Urshifu slot. So now it is a 2v1. I think Alex making the completely correct play to keep himself in this one. Marco had the ability to potentially commit Terra on his Urshifu there. Doesn't go for it. But effectively, this is now a 1v1, right? By forcing the Urshifu to lock into Aqua Jet, it is not going to deal meaningful damage. Grassy Terrain is slowly expiring as well. 2 Dragon Pulses likely will knock out Rillaboom. And so, I think the advantage is still heavily in Marco's favor. If you're Alex, you're probably hoping for a critical hit with your high horsepower.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I understand, obviously, the Aqua Jet play, but you see how minimal damage it deals, and considering you've got the leftovers, you can go for Protects, and you're locked into the Aqua Jet, you can't change your mind on it. You're really free as the Raging Bolt to just deal with this Rillaboom, and then you can turn your attention down into the opposing Urshifu, because it's really not threatening you in any way, shape, or form. It's completely locked in, and even if, you know, it does get a cheeky critical hit, well, I can always just Protect and regain that HP and act like it never happened.
Yeah, I think if you're to review this game, the key turn is really just the Fake Out Dragon Pulse onto the Dragonite, taking out what was, you know, the #1 threat to Raging Bolt, gave Marco such a big advantage. Marco just saying, you know what, I'm going to make the obvious play here, gets it right, but it's high horsepower coming out. That's really good damage. I mean, another one will get the knockout, but will Rillaboom survive Dragon Pulse into... Oh, yeah. I was going to say Dragon Pulse into the Thunderclap is not going to... yeah, Rillaboom won't be able to survive that, so Rillaboom at least hangs around for another turn. But
yeah, no
you are in potential KO range. Yep.
Yeah, going to be that Dragon Pulse coming through. But I mean, the high horsepower did a lot.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
The Rillaboom This was such a crazy play. So the Rillaboom was trying to get around Thunderclap, and Marco, and you get the crit with the Aqua Jet, but Marco just calls it and just Dragon Pulses. That was like the Rillaboom tried to fake out specifically so that Thunderclap would fail. So Urshifu would go for the Aqua Jet, and so you probably were like, oh, Marco, why in the world would you lock into a Dragon Pulse there instead of Thunderclap? But it was specifically because he knew Alex could fake out there, and Alex actually went for it, and Marco called it. Like, that was insane.
And he locked that in so quickly as well, because although we were saying, like, sure, this Aqua Jet does barely anything, thanks to the high horsepower, it actually was in a position where if it gets a critical hit like it just did, and hey, if it gets another one, then that one fake out bait around the Thunderclap could have been so devastating. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. You know, Marco one step ahead, able to go for that Dragon Pulse, and
oh my goodness!
It's able to hang on a critical hit. It was a critical hit.
Two crits.
Goodness. Aaron, this is literally what could have happened if that fake out bait had worked.
That was unreal. Like you said, Luke, Marco made the move so quickly. Like, we didn't even have time to react to it, because I was like, wait, did he lock Dragon Pulse? Like, I'm pretty sure he did, but like I didn't even see it. But like the fact that he literally clicked that without thinking at all, like that was such high level. The fact that he knew Alex was going to go for the fake out to get around Thunderclap and got it right was unbelievable. I mean, what a set we had between Titans here.
And once again, he didn't even terrestrialize, right?
Yes, yeah, never clicked it once.
Maybe he doesn't have his Terra Orb, like, I don't know. Like, he's just not using it. It's wild.
The endgame was just absolutely insane. I mean, like, both of those endgames for Alex to have gotten the, like, double extreme speed, right? And then for Marco to have called that you are specifically going to fake out with Rillaboom, and I'm not going to Thunderclap, when another high horsepower would have just gotten the knockout, was absolutely nuts. Like, that's like the highest level of play, right? Because it's like most players would not predict Rillaboom to go for fake out there, so they would Thunderclap. But Alex is a high enough player to recognize, hey, I can actually win this because the Aqua Jet damage is adding up and high horsepower is doing enough. And then Marco is even one step ahead and calls it. Like, for that to have been the end game was absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, I think you're right. It is just that higher tier of cognitive function when it comes to the game, because you might kind of think, well, the fake out obviously is going to fail. Like, why would you do that? What benefit is that giving you? But what it's giving you is time, giving you time for that Urshifu to be able to get that damage stacking up, because the only way to get around that priority was that fake out. And it does, I think, take a lot of guts to be able to not only identify those plays, but to still actually click the buttons.
Totally. Like, Marco just loses there if Alex clicks high horsepower, right? Which is kind of like the seemingly obvious play. And so I think like that endgame perfectly encapsulates what high level VGC is all about. Like, to make the absolute correct read and make a play that seems so crazy was beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and that's why these guys are indeed champions. And we actually have our two finalists now locked in to find out who is going to become this Summit of Champions champion. It's going to be either Kanugawa or marcofiero. I mean, you couldn't. It doesn't matter who it was always going to be phenomenal. But just by watching the journey that these two have gone on today, I am so excited to see this grand final.
Yeah, and I believe we started the day with these two going off against each other, and so for Marco to have a chance at redemption, I think must be exciting for him. And if he wins this one, he will have defeated all three players in the tournament. And like, what better way to an event like this, there's not really high stakes. It's more about like the bragging rights, but to be able to say you beat three of the best players, of the world and of all time is so great for bragging rights. And yeah, I've just been so impressed by Marco's play and his willingness to like lean into taking crazy risks when it seems like it's crazy, but like getting it right so frequently.
Yeah, and I think that's a great observation, actually, that it has come full circle. This is how we started our tournament today and how we're going to end it. And it's going to be so exciting to see whether, Kanugawa can take the same learnings and, dominate again, or is Marco going to be able to, have studied up and have a prepared response to that. So only one more match left, which is absolutely wild. It's been such an incredible tournament so far. I know our finalists want to get ready. So I know from my side, I just want to say a big thanks to Marcus, my fellow casters, the players, and production as well, just for everything they've done. But there's still one more game left. So and then Marcus and Aaron will take you through the grand finals.